Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the opportunity to share with you a little bit about what uh, the process that I take in producing these PDF documents. I'm really thrilled that some of you have kind of shown an interest in wanting to do the same thing for maybe upcoming subjects or to share or even as an exercise for yourself. I found that it's really helpful just in being able to engage with the content or pre-engage with the content um, before probably engaging with it more in depth. Sort of doing the content up kind of allows me an opportunity to kind of form a bit of the framework of the content and be able to fill in the blanks later on when I look at it more in depth. Um, so anyway, uh, let's dive right in. Some of you have kind of asked, how do I produce these? What software do I use? And really, it's just a word processor. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. Some people prefer Microsoft Word. I just happen to use Google Docs, and so that's what it ends up being. I use it because it comes with a lot of really useful shortcuts and features that Microsoft Word also has, and probably other packages as well. But I've gotten used to and getting to know, having gotten to know some of the key shortcuts are kind of the key things that allow me to produce the documents faster than if I had to do mouse clicks and drag down like menus and select and go through sub-menus to try and change something like formatting and whatnot. Because a big part of this exercise is really just is formatting. Copying the text itself is probably the easy part. The only trick with the pasting is that I paste without the formatting, so I use like a Control-Shift-V instead of a Control-V. So then I apply my own formatting, or if I'm doing it to an existing document, I'm allowing the plain text to be pasted into existing formatting so that it takes up that that formatting in the document already. And so what the Google Doc will look like is I've got here basically what you already have seen. What it looks like is probably like something like this when it's editable, and all I do is from subject to subject I'll just copy an entire set of the previous subject's notes to a new set of documents, and then update the text that's from the main content. So if using this as an example, this particular document is just the week 1 of 4206, which is our current subject, and say, I might copy the entire content into, say, this document, which is probably a fresh one, and it's Microskills 2 from 4209. I haven't got any details in there, any content in there at the moment in this document, so I'll just paste it in, and then from here it might take a little while. Yep, so there you go. It'll even copy all of the formatting from that other document. So from here, I then say pop across to the content. This is the content for 4209, I think, and say I'm working on week 2, and I might just copy the title across like this, and then just paste it in with the Control-Shift-V, so it kind of retains the formatting, as you can see. You'll notice, like in 4209, its title forms part of that first line as well as the thing that says what week we're in, whereas in our current subject they're kind of on separate lines. You'll find that there's small formatting changes like that that will just vary from subject to subject, just depending on what the lecturer or the subject coordinator wants to do as they're putting this together. There isn't a general consistency. I mean, the information is just basically there in that page, and I guess I try and sort of remain faithful to the content that's been produced from me for each subject, rather than try and make all of the notes look exactly the same. So rather they kind of remain true to what they were produced by the content creator originally. So I'll do this, and sometimes I do like a welcome as a title, so I might leave it like that, and pop it in like this, and then here I'll just drag I'll just highlight the whole paragraph and copy it, and then paste it across like that, and then remove some spaces and whatnot, just to maintain kind of a level of consistency. And that's kind of what the gist of it is. It's just an exercise in maintaining a consistent look and feel across the documents for each week, and it really helps, like, to be able to use the key shortcuts. So you can easily just go select, edit, paste without formatting, but you'll see it's much quicker if you can just use the shortcuts. And I'm not sort of singing the praises of Google Docs necessarily, but I do like, Microsoft Word has the same thing too. The menus give you these shortcuts and gives you a hint as to like how you can speed up that process of document editing. So definitely exploit that feature that you might find in whatever software package that you decide to use. I've just decided to go with Google Docs because that's just handy for me. Particular shortcuts that I find that I use a lot are things like bold, italics, and underline. You'll see these throughout. So, like, as I'm pasting them in, if they don't get retained for whatever reason, then I can just very quickly be able to go Control B and switch them on and off like that. Indentation is a big thing that I use quite extensively, kind of to delineate each section and subsections that kind of they just come in and out of each section. Sometimes you'll see particular like drop boxes or expansion boxes and things like that. So I'll put those in like a little subsection. I'll see if I can find one here. Oh yeah, like this sort of thing. This was probably one of those expansion boxes and whatnot that I've just turned into like a section and subsection, and that way, this just keeps it more or less together. So in your mind, you can kind of tell, oh yeah, this is all of these belong to this whole section or subsection, and I generally find that I don't need to go beyond 3 or 4 levels. If that, probably even 2 or 3 levels is probably the extent of it. So I don't go too crazy, but being able to have the shortcuts just means you can do it a lot quicker. So as you're pasting it in, you might go, oh yeah, this is the main section. You just go bang like that, and it's there. Or if it's there and you want it to be a subsection, you just go bang and it's there. So similar, this sort of thing. If you were sort of copying and pasting it in, and it sort of, if it started out like that, you just highlight and then a couple of key taps, and you've got it set up in little sections. That kind of makes sense. Bullets and numbered points are also a thing that get used a lot. So there's probably shortcuts in Microsoft Word as well, or other packages, but in Google Docs I find it really, really handy. So I can just do like a Control-Shift-8 to activate, bullet points and whatnot, or Control-Shift-7 if I wanted to use numbered points. If you want to change the kind of numbering, because sometimes documents, lecturers might use Roman numerals instead of numbers, or sometimes they use letters instead of numbers, or the other way around. Yeah, that's where you kind of have to then refer to up here, format bullets and numbering, and you can change them. It's the same in Microsoft Word. It's no different. But having the shortcut kind of allows you to kind of set them up initially anyway, and then you can go in and change them as you need to. Text resizing is a kind of a big thing, because what I try and do is make the content fit kind of into each page as much as I can. So I try and not let things go over and then only use 1 or 2 lines and whatnot. So sometimes I maybe, you could probably call it cheating a little bit, because like this is a classic example. Like this is in 11 point, as you can see, and then all these are in 9 point, and I've probably done that so that I could sort of fit this thing in into this little section, although you can see it's actually broken up onto a second page. Sometimes you just can't help it, and you just have to allow things to flow over to the next page. There's not much you can do about that. But I do try as hard as I can to kind of fit everything in, and sometimes you have to use slightly smaller text or play around with the line spacing a little bit, or paragraph spacing a little bit. Where I can't use key shortcuts, like what I was talking about before, with like changing the numbering style, for the frequently used things, like exactly like for numbering, I kind of get to know where they are in the menu, so you can sort of get to them fairly easily and fairly quickly. It's the same in Microsoft Word as well, if that's your preferred software. It's just something that's handy. So apart from things like numbering, text color changes and highlighting is probably another classic example. Sometimes, you'll probably notice, like I use red, or have used red. Sometimes I don't use red, sometimes I just use black for the headings. So I know that here I've got to select that sort of thing to change text color or highlight if I ever use that. I don't usually use highlighting for the main document. I use highlighting afterwards when I'm annotating, but that's just a handy thing to keep in mind. Other things that I use, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've used them before, just because sometimes the main content has text formatted in a certain way that kind of require me to use columns and tables. I don't know if I've got a good example lined up, but I may do. I'll see if I can quickly find. Oh, here's a good example. This kind of thing in week 5, topic 3 of our content. Like if you try and do this as a thing, it's just almost impossible. But what I find is that turning it into a table just allows me to, I guess, to show it in a similar kind of way to what it looked like in the main content. So there's a little bit of playing around. For this kind of thing, I do spend a little bit more time to try and faithfully replicate what appears in the main content. So I'll use things like tables and columns. Sometimes content is such a way that I find that it's wasteful of space. If I just allow them to flow from one thing to the next, so I try and pair them up side by side, and you can do that through tables. I don't know if I can find an example here necessarily. Probably not. Oh no, doesn't matter. You get what I mean. You can use columns just to if you've got content that's quite narrow and will fit 2 across, and you can highlight a section, and I'll demonstrate, maybe not with that, but maybe over here, maybe I don't know, maybe this bit somehow fits within 2 columns, so you can just go, let's do 2 columns, and you can do, fancy things like that. Sometimes content works well like so, and knowing where the options are to do that is something that just speeds up your process of doing up these sections. But that's the key thing. Like you get this on a Monday early morning or something like that in the beginning of the week, and it's like, well, you just want to spend as little time as you need to put the content together so that it's ready and you can put it out, or that you can use it or share it or whatever. And you try and use whatever methods and shortcuts that are available to you to try and get that done. That's my take on it anyway. You'll notice JCU uses a lot of icons for their headings. This sort of thing. And so a lot of the icons are just repeated. So rather than, I find that you can't copy these like that. Like, it doesn't copy across. So what I've had to do is use like a screen capture to capture each icon, like in its place, I guess. And I keep a library of icons and headings. Obviously I don't use the actual headings, but I use the formatting for the headings. So this is my library of icons that I've found that have been used so far. And so even if I'm using a template, the icons aren't used in exactly the same places, so invariably I have to refer to this to grab. Like, if they happen to use this as a heading, then I grab this whole thing and I go across here, and I might I think this is my Scratch document. Okay, yeah, it is. So I can just do this sort of thing, and there's a new section, and if it happens to be this, then I go in here and I update this bit and I change it. Oh yeah, it's week 1, topic 5, or whatever it happens to be that I'm updating. That just makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker, rather than trying to work out, I've got to do a cut and paste of the icon and then try and type this out. And because what I do here is I've got the heading, but also throughout the document I put in like I just remind myself which week it's from and what topic I'm on. That just makes it easier when you're looking through the documents later on. You're kind of looking through that. It's all text and pictures, and it's like, well, which week am I looking on? And it's like, you can see at a glance. I make sure there's one of those on each page if there's a section like this sort of thing. So just so I can see at a glance where I'm up to in the notes that I'm looking at later on. This is all for later on. And I grabbed this from an icons and headings library. So recently they've started using this sort of thing, Assessment Station and SDG Connection and fancy things like that, with like highlighting and whatnot. So I have that ready made, so when I come across it in the main content, I can just go over here and grab it and copy it across like this sort of thing. It just makes it a lot quicker if they do that, and you're not mucking around with it. You don't spend like 10 minutes trying to work out things. You just copy it straight across. I mean, it's all an exercise in trying to save time, so that you don't have to spend many hours. I mean, I still end up spending many hours, but you don't have to spend as many, because for a very content intensive week even, it can be it's very deceptive. Each week's content might only consist of, say, 6 topics, but when you actually expand everything out, all the drop downs and all the expansion points, you might end up with like 40 or up to 60 pages worth of notes, of PDFs, which is quite a lot. So if you have to process 60 pages worth of content, even though you're cutting and pasting, but you're doing the formatting, it can take a long time. So whatever you can save is all the go, basically. So that's what I do. Text size, I've talked about that already, I think. I try and use Arial 11 for everything, except for, things like this where I'm trying to fit as much in as possible rather than letting them run across partial pages, because that just chews up more pages than maybe that's ideal. So I'll play around with the text sizes and make this sort of thing a little bit smaller just to be able to make it fit. And sometimes you have to play around with that because you might find that images are included. So I'll try and copy the images, usually just with a screen capture type application. In Windows, that might be Snip and Sketch in Windows 10. That's really handy because you can do basically do like a partial screen grab. So you can specify a small section. So if I don't know if you can see this, but when I click on it, you'll probably see the window change. Yep, and then I can sort of, if we pretend that this is from the main content and not from my document, then you can just go grab this. You've just grabbed that screen, that little screen byte, and you can go in here and just paste. And here's where knowing where the shortcuts are and the functions are important, because by default it'll probably cause text to wrap in a certain way that's not ideal. So you might want it to change the wrapping from inline to, say, wrap text, so that you can drag these around and put them in different places and do fancy things in terms of placement, which will be handy for things like this. See, so that's like sitting off to the side, and sometimes you find that the content has it sitting on the left, or sometimes it's much bigger or whatever. So you can play around with that a little bit, and I do. I try and keep most things that are in text as text. So sometimes you see things that have like references and whatnot, or it has little bits of commentary that go along with an image. As much as I can, I try and keep those as text, because that allows searchability. Otherwise, if you copy the whole thing, if you copy the whole thing as an image, you prevent that being searchable, because it's now just a screen byte. See, if you just did that. Not that I've ever had to search for that sort of thing in an exam situation, in a quiz situation, but I don't want to leave it to chance, I guess. So if I find that I do need to quickly find some text that happens to be part of an image, or just outside of an image, then keeping it as text allows you to do that. So YouTube clips are one of the things that get used a lot. So what I try and do is make them clickable, so that for your own benefit, I suppose, but also for other people who might use these documents later on, they can just, they see this and they know it's a thing that they might want to watch and see, but they can just click on it and open it up and follow it and be able to view it. It's just a handy thing. In Microsoft Word, I don't know how they actually do that. I remember there's a hyperlinks function, but within Google Docs, it's just Control K. And in fact, if I go Control K, will it let me do that? It probably won't let me do that. It will make a liar out of me. Probably because I'm recording, it's not able to follow through with some keystrokes. So I don't seem to be able to. Oh no! It's actually, I do know why. Because these images have had wrap text applied to them. When you do that, Google Docs won't allow you to add hyperlinks to them. But that's you probably don't need to know that terribly much. So Padlets is another big thing. Padlets get used quite a lot for exercises. So in the main text, the Padlets will open out to allow you to use them interactively. But within a PDF, that's not really possible. So what I do is I basically just, I can't actually see one here, but what I just hyperlink the Padlet. Oh, there might be one here that I can quickly bring up. Oh, you've come across them before anyway, most likely. So you'll probably know what I mean. It is just another hyperlink. The way that I grab the Padlets is, so if I go back to this document, I'll see if I can find a Padlet in here. I may not be able to. Had I better prepared, I might have been able to show a Padlet. Anyway, you can right click on a Padlet, and I'm not going to see things here. That doesn't matter. But you normally can right click on a Padlet and be able to bring up the URL for the Padlet. Anyway, I hadn't worked that out, so I won't be able to talk about it here. I do a similar kind of thing for other interactive elements, and try and incorporate the links into the PDF so that you can click on it. This is handy for later on, for yourself and for other people as well, I suppose, when you're looking at content. So I think that's pretty much it. I think I've covered most things. From here, I basically, the great thing about Google Docs is from here you can download straight to a PDF, and that's how I do it. Some people have asked about, oh, can you send me a Google Doc? I have a feeling you can't actually send a Google Doc. What you can do is, when you try and send it, I think it generates a docx, like a Microsoft Word document. Whilst downloading as a PDF retains a lot of the formatting that I've set up, I've found that downloading as a Microsoft Word document doesn't. So some of that formatting gets lost or gets changed when you open them up again. So that's about the only caveat about converting it to Microsoft Word for sending. In terms of directly sending a document out, Google Docs allows you to share a document with people, which you can do, but you're more or less allowing people to edit or access your document. You're not really sending them a copy of your document. So I tend to steer clear from doing that. I probably rather, if people wanted content, maybe if they sort of shared a document that they have in Google Docs, and then I can edit that and cut and paste the content like I did earlier on with cutting and pasting content from one document to another. That way you retain the Google Docs formatting. Otherwise, if I'm sharing a document with someone, that document is still mine. So I'm not really, all I'm doing is allowing them to edit my document, which kind of I defeats the purpose a little bit. I think people want to be able to access their own documents and play around with them and update them. So I think that's pretty much it. If I haven't covered everything, I'm sure I haven't covered everything, but if there's other things that you've seen in the documents that you want me to elaborate on, drop me a note, and maybe we can have a chat about it, or I can do up another video and include that or something like that. But otherwise, I hope this has been helpful, and yeah, wishing you all the best in your studies and in your upcoming subjects, and also if you'd like to create documents using this sort of thing. Thanks very much for your time.